Um, yes, let me tell you that we are sitting in a unique place. We are in the busiest metropolis on earth. If you know, from Brazil to Australia, our green lungs are being hammered, burnt, degraded. Borneo is losing a forest equivalent to Sanjay Gandhi National Park every 15 days to oil palm cultivation. Across the planet, whether it's a developed nation or a developing nation or underdeveloped, either wildlife or the forest are being depleted. In that kind of a scenario, for a country which is 1.3 billion people, for a state to take up responsibility of protecting one of the most fragile ecosystems, and that too successfully, as Shri Tiwari ji mentioned, that there has been very sincere effort put in by the Maharashtra Forest Department, and that there has been rejuvenation of this particular ecosystem. But that is a rarity. Also, to have a state-of-art information center, and you know, we are all Indians here, we have been to many places, and the information centers are, we can't talk about them much. So this is the kind of quality infrastructure that is needed. A lot of people say, why do you spend so much money? But it is important, because these battles that we are fighting is because of the non-action by our predecessors. But if we don't do anything now, the future generation will be left with nothing. There has to be, why are you sitting here on a Sunday? Why am I coming here? Why is he? He's an engineer himself. Why did he join Forest Department? Because he was exposed to nature. When you get exposed to nature, you start understanding nature, you fall in love with it. When you fall in love with it, you want to do something about it. The only way you can do something is through action, right? A photographer can go and take pictures and publish it and talk about how important that is and make people fall in love. But there is nothing like first-hand connection. And so this center allows school children and also grown-ups to come and have a hands-on experience of this very, very unique ecosystem, which we don't even know exists in Bombay. In fact, if you ask an average Mumbaiite about mangroves, they will say, "Pata nahi kya." कोई तो पेड़ पानी के पास होते हैं. That people know because when they go on a railway line, either on the central side or on western, you see some patches of mangrove either in Mahim, Bandra, or on this side Kalwa, Mumra, and all that. But that too has got degraded badly. So it's something on which plastic bags are hanging. On the low tide, you will see all the plastic bags here. Today, through this 1 hour talk, I will share with you first of all, the beauty, the diversity, and the challenges that we have. We also we'll try to see how mangroves are important to us. In this the modern world, everything is about give and take. Human beings also will protect nature if we see there is some benefit from it. We definitely have benefit, but whether we see it or not is different. Everybody who breathes oxygen, drinks water, eats food, or spends a weekend in the forest benefits from it. But what is important is to make that connection. And it's very important that we as Mumbaiites, which is the capital for mangrove conservation now, I can say, because see, Sundarbans, you all know, is a massive, it's the largest protected mangrove stretch on earth. There are mangroves in many continents. There is a unique feature on land and sea which creates mangroves, right? So deltas, mudflats formed where fresh water meets the sea. So you have mangroves all over. But Sundarbans, which is both India and Bangladesh put together, is the largest mangrove forest on earth. But it is mostly inaccessible. Okay, I have been there, we work there, and it is one place where I don't know whether I will survive if I am left inside the forest overnight. There is hardly any forest other than Sundarbans or maybe Kaziranga where you get that feeling. All other parks you will feel पेड़ पे जाके बैठ जाओ कुछ नहीं होगा. So their protection is given because of the geographical reasons. But Bombay, where the land mafia, the building community, they are constantly thinking of where can I get a millimeter land to build something which is going to be called sea view. Sea view बहुत जगह पे है, valley view भी बहुत जगह पे है. Every year one layer gets added. So what was called sea view 30 years back is only looking at clothes and unmentionables hanging from the other building. Now, so वो बढ़ते रहते हैं, right? So that pressure is massive. If you are part of the forest department, you will understand how much of encroachment pressure is there and how helpless sometimes the forest department feels because they have the power. So a forest guard can also go and book a case against somebody. He doesn't even need to have a warrant. He can just say, I arrest you, and that person can be arrested. So that is the power of the law. But when it comes to conviction, it is next to zero. So in that kind of scenario, we are very fortunate that A, this place exists, B, the mangroves of Bombay exist, not only in those stretches which are with the forest department, but you must not forget the role that Godrej has played for protecting a big chunk of mangrove land. So why that is important also is because it's not always the government whose responsibility it is to protect. Every individual, if I was a man who had land, it's my responsibility to protect it. It's not that land should be developed because I want to make money. I should also say, I have the land, I should protect it for posterity. So Godrej has proven, so it's a role model. And you must also, if you're interested, you must also go there. They also have a good information center. There are some biologists there who can take you for walks. And you can. So this is how we are, right? We think we are one with nature actually. We are not constantly thinking about it. But whenever you want calm, you either want to go and walk on the sea, just sit on a promenade on Marine Drive. Even if there are so many hundreds and thousands of vehicles making those honking sounds, you are facing the sea and you forget everything else. The first vein that produces that smell, you know the smell of the first vein? That gurgling stream on which you are sitting with your feet touching maybe just the toe. That feeling that you experience when you do all that is the same for every single human being. Unless you have a phobia of something. It doesn't matter where you are. Whether you are in Bangladesh, you are in Sudan, or you are in California. That feeling is unanimously known and accepted. Right? How do we translate that into action? Because we all love it, but we don't come together to say that, hey, let's all join hands so that natural infrastructure, we all understand the word infrastructure, and most of us know of physical, financial, right? But we hardly talk about natural. Mangroves, terrestrial ecosystems, corals in the sea, they are all natural infrastructure. And that infrastructure has been built over millions of years. Sanjay Gandhi National Park, have you all been? You have seen the basalt rock there. All the black rock that you see is basically because of the lava flow. You know how old that flow has been? At least 30 million years. At least. Somewhere between 60 million and 30 million years. Okay. Sanjay Gandhi National Park, obviously once all that was connected with, when it talk about Pangaea, it was connected with Africa. If you see, India will fit exactly with Africa, with the Madagascar part also in it, right? It's all shifted. The forest had existed even then. So we are living, Western Ghats for instance is one of the oldest ecosystems, much older than the Himalaya. The Himalaya was born when our tectonic plate hit the northern plate and the mountain came up. So this came, and that's how the Himalaya came up, and it's still growing because the plate is still going up. Okay, it's very interesting to study geology and understand how the plates are behaving. But Western Ghats, for instance, is been there for so long. The biodiversity here is not something that we can look at in a snapshot. It's a byproduct of millions of years of succession. Okay, grasses come, then leguminous plants come, the nitrogen fixing happens there, and then the complexity of those landscapes go up, and you have different species. So all that cannot be undone or cannot be recreated. I mean, it can be undone by doing some developmental project, but if we have to bring it back, so when you and most governments, it's not, India is not unique, across the planet every country is talking about afforestation. Okay, is it possible to get the forest back by planting trees? You can get a plantation, mostly monoculture. The capacity of that rejuvenated land is not even 50% of a natural forest when it comes to sequestration of carbon. And carbon obviously is in the air in the form of carbon dioxide, but a lot of it is in the soil. So when you talk of mangroves per se, it is even more delicate because all the soil that you see is clayey soil. There is huge amount of carbon there, much more than a normal terrestrial ecosystem. Okay, and when you destroy that, all that is released into the atmosphere. And when you talk of climate change, a very big chunk of issues around climate change is because of reduction of forests. Another important part which we all don't talk about is disappearance of wetlands. In fact, the impact of wetland on climate change, negative impact of reclamation of wetland is 22 times more than reclamation of a forest. Because in wetlands there is huge amount of methane as well. Methane is formed through millions of years of churning of wet soil and dead plant and animal matter. Okay? So whenever a wetland is reclaimed or is dried, you have huge loads of methane that goes into the atmosphere, and it's very true about mangroves. One molecule of methane has an impact equivalent to 22 molecules of carbon dioxide. So you can imagine the impact of what it is. So you see wetlands are small in Bombay. When we were growing, there were so many small water bodies everywhere. Now you go to North Bombay, maybe towards Gorai, you still see them. But otherwise, 4 bungalows, 7 bungalows, all these places in Andheri, everything is gone. Big skyscrapers have come. The impact of that is massive. You will not be able to feel. That's why you have all this increase in temperature and all that, because this is happening across the planet. And in India, in fact, thanks to our strict laws and the forest department's effectiveness, that in at least the well-governed state, I would not say across the country, but Maharashtra, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, to a certain extent in Uttarakhand, we still have the forest being protected. And when we say forest, remember that when somebody connected to the forest department talks about forest, it's everything. That is, green could be an aquatic ecosystem or. Next slide. Uniqueness about mangroves. What is different when you see a mangrove plant? Mangrove is not a species, right? It's a group of plants. Why are they called mangroves? And what is unique about these mangroves? That they can survive in brackish water. Visibly, आपको क्या? What do you feel? Why? What is unique about this particular plant? What is this here?
Breathing roots.
Very good. What are these here?
Roots.
Roots. Do you see something like this in any other plant? So why do you have these breathing roots? Because this is soil. All other roots go in this direction. Why then roots of certain species that live in these marshlands go in the opposite direction?
So that they can get oxygen from the air.
Okay. So they get oxygen from the air, but other roots, why should not they get oxygen?
Because this is clayey soil.
So because of the clayey soil, there is huge amount of compaction. The oxygen content, so the porosity is not there. So there is hardly any air trap there. Okay? And because of that, it is oxygen deficient. And look how nature is. We look at mangroves now and say, "Hey, ये तो बहुत beautiful adaptation है." But this is not how it has happened. There is competition between human beings. You compete with your friends in sports, in exam papers. Like that, every species is competing every single moment of its life with some other species. So when species diversed, there is a lot of speciation, there were different niches available. You understand niche? Niche is a certain environment conducive to life. But that niche is available, but there should be an organism that can utilize what is there. So if I was a frog in the water, and I sit in the water and I look on land and I say, "Hey, yaar, idhar frogs hai, whatever I'm eating, I have to compete." Then there is magarmach who want to eat me. There are birds who are trying to kill me. I have to fight with other males to find a female. But if I went on land, I don't see anything. Let me go on land and see. Because if I can survive there, then I will be the only person. And so all of it is going to be mine. So that urge makes species do things. It doesn't happen overnight because a frog cannot start flying the next day. So it happens through millions of years of evolution. Similarly, in plant world, the land is already occupied. Plants are fighting with each other like mammals and birds and reptiles and amphibians do. So then some species of plants started adapting to a very hostile environment. Like a snow leopard started moving up into a very hostile environment or a chinkara started going towards the desert. It was not chinkara then, now it's chinkara because it went there and became what it is, right? Some animal, to reduce competition, it started going to areas with most species would not want to go. For that, slowly the body responded and it started using less water. It started losing more heat through ears. The ears became big. The capillaries came to the surface. The nose became wet much more. So exchange of that can happen, right? All those things. Feet became differently so that on sand it can walk more splayed. Similarly in mangroves, on land there is enough. So this adaptation kicked in and slowly the roots started behaving like our noses. So they started coming out. This is not true with all mangrove species. There are mangrove species which are like this. This is a rhizophora which is found in this area. Another very, very common, the most common here is Avicennia. And Avicennia has breathing roots. Okay? But there are many species. So I am not going to go into every species because there are books available. And you can read through them. But there are associate mangrove species, which means there is terrestrial, then these mangroves which are really there in the intertidal, and in between there are species. Salvadora is a species which is an associate mangrove, which is neither here nor there. It lives, but it will not survive in the water, but it will survive in land which is brackish. Okay, so everywhere where there is a niche available, some species occupy, and some niches are still vacant. And that evolution is still going on, but it happens at such a slow rate that in our lifetime we cannot see it. Human beings also, we were monkeys, apes, and now we are like this. We stand upright. We used to be on our four. Our bones were very different. Our feet were different. We were able to hold with our foot. Now we can't hold because it's not required. If you started going up on tree, because if everything becomes water and you started going up on tree, maybe millions of years later you will again have certain characters which will help you. Okay, so that you must keep in mind. You can't take this for granted. This is a work of art which has happened for millions of years. So when we say art think हम replace कर देंगे इसको, it is the most stupid thing to think, because nature, which is so supreme, has only been able to create them through millions of years of sculpturing. Okay, next slide. This photo is from Sundarban. Okay, mangroves you will find them in creeks. You will find them in mudflats, deltas, and estuaries. In estuaries, the salinity of water is minimum, because estuaries are formed where fresh water meets the sea. And so mangroves, when I say there are different species, there are in all on earth 80 species of mangroves only. Okay? In Sundarbans and that area, if you see, there are about 35 to 40 species. Bombay also had, but slowly those species have gone because the most specialized ones have gone. It's unfortunate. Okay, when all the species are in shape or are together, that particular patch of mangrove becomes the most biodiverse one, because then it will have so many different niches for other animals. So they are plants which can tolerate from 40% salt. So ocean water is about 37% salt. So some of these creeks in Bombay also, the salt is nearly 34%. To about 0.7%. So some of on the upstreams of the estuaries, the water is almost fresh. Okay, so that salinity is minimal. There also mangroves can survive. So there is a huge latitude. So they have got adapted, but to adapt to different situations. Then it is one species that is constantly in a up and down situation, because there is a high tide. So in a 24-hour cycle, there is at least 2 times when water will inundate. So those roots will all go in, water will come in. Okay, so you see this line. This line is the high tide line, where the water can come up to this level and it goes down. So it's every day this is happening. Another important thing is, if you drink salt water, what happens?
Feels very salty.
You will feel salty. There are other things that happen to you. Okay, it's not healthy for you. You may have overload of sodium and all that. Similarly, in plants, also the same thing happens. So mangroves are not plants that can tolerate salt. Remember that. They are plants that can eliminate the entry of salt into the body or excretion of salt in an efficient manner. 2 ways. Next slide. So this is again one of those side creeks in the Sundarban area. You see this. So all these roots, when they go underwater, they are able to filter the water. The salt cannot enter. And if the salt enters, there are salt glands which are able to excrete salt. So if you were to touch the leaf of mangrove and actually lick it, you will find that it is salty, because they will be giving out salt. It's not like they can tolerate the salt. They will get the salt out or eliminate the salt from getting in. That is one very interesting thing about mangroves that you must keep in mind. Next slide. This is from Borneo, and you can see that the entire forest floor is covered with these roots. Now, what is very interesting about this is that these roots are acting like your fingers. What do your finger can be used as a shovel, or it can be used to stop, right? So there are millions of these roots, and they slow down the flow of water. The force of water is broken, and so it doesn't have enough force. It doesn't have enough force to dislodge mud. So the mud that is brought in by the river, or the sand that comes by the sea side, once it enters inside this profusion of roots, it gets slowed down and it settles. Years of that causes the formation of land. This is the only natural mechanism in the plant world that is building land for us. The sea every second, the sea is breaking land somewhere on earth. Okay? It's only these mangroves that are fighting with the sea. Can you fight with the sea? Can we fight with the sea? But these guys can fight, and not only fight, win that battle and add land. So they reclaim some part of lost land. That's very important. Next, you can see how these roots are, different species are in a different, see this, how big they are. So this land will start getting built up. And after a while, because then the tree will move inside, slowly. Because what will happen, how will the tree move? Does it have feet? How does it move? Seeds. That brings us to another adaptation, epiphytic. It is. The seeds germinate on the plant. So the seeds normally of another tree has to go through the gut of a monkey or a bird or some other species or a bat. The outer covering is dissolved by the acid and it falls with the poop, and that poop acts as a manure, and that's how the tree grows. Okay, in the soil, germination happens outside. Here, because the habitat is such, it's very difficult for seeds to survive in the ocean. And the mortality, even in humans, is maximum when you are born. Right? And then it starts going down. So when an animal or a plant is young, there is huge amount of loss. The mortality rates are much higher. Now that is the most vulnerable part. On land, you still have a vast area, you have birds to do all these things. Here, they don't have so much of help from other organisms, and the hostile climate will have such a huge negative impact that they will not be able to regenerate. And so when the land is built here, the seed of this mangrove tree or some other tree will come and lodge here. And then it probably, there is some, so it will lodge here, it will start growing, land will be added. So that's how it is. The seed is interesting, very heavy on the bottom. So it's like a capsule like this. And then there are leaves here. So when it falls, automatically it will go in this direction and it sits inside. So even if it was floating, after a while, this is how it will become automatically. It's so interesting. Next slide. Leaves get entangled. So the nutrition is also there. Next slide. These are the different benefits that one has from mangrove. This is Bombay specific, but anywhere you go, the same things apply. Flood protection. Mithi Nadi, you know. Where is the mouth of Mithi Nadi? Mahim. What happens in Mithi Nadi? Mouth, there used to be mangrove. Okay? Now those mangroves have all gone. So when there is high tide and the water comes, you have huge amount of flooding. But because mangroves were there, human beings never stayed there. But now mangroves have been claimed in so many areas which were actually mangroves are being reclaimed. For the best example is when you go to in-orbit side, that's Goregaon, then Bangur Nagar area. When I was growing, I was your age, it was all mangrove. We used to go and see birds, there, flamingos and all those things behind. Now, you know that area? Behind Mindspace and all that, there's little bit of mangrove is left. All of it has been reclaimed by us. Okay? Now, if the situation is reversed, which means there is huge amount of flooding, because the mangrove has been replaced by buildings, those buildings are under severe threat because they are directly hitting the sea. Carbon sequestration, I told you, wetland, lot of carbon there, more mangroves, more carbon in the wood, also lot more in the soil. Erosion, I have already spoken, how with the roots. Nursery for fish and invertebrate. Fish that live in the sea, and a lot of fishermen depend on India. 30% of Indians are dependent on the sea, either for protein or as a means of livelihood. Right? So when you say fish, it includes prawns, it includes many things, crabs, all of it that comes from the sea. Mangroves are unique ecosystems because it has the best of both worlds. The river brings nutrition through lot of erosion on rocks and all, it beats the rocks, minerals are dislodged, that is a nutritious soup. And here the sea, both of them meet, so they have huge amount of nutrition in that particular area. That becomes a nursery for fish and invertebrates. Why am I mentioning invertebrates? Invertebrates we don't eat much. I mean crabs yes, but otherwise, why it's important? Because they are food for fish. So if invertebrate population goes up, you will have small fish that feed on it, then the bigger fish, then even bigger. So if you are a fisherman in Kerala, you go maybe 10 kilometers in the sea to fish. But the fish that you are catching lived their first year in the mangrove area. Why? Because of the silt that comes with the water and the sea water. That water is very, very turbid. And turbid water, visibility is poor. Predators cannot see you. So fish are hiding in the mangroves. Plus the leaf litter is huge, so there is always a leaf fall. That also creates an environment for a lot of other bacterial and fungal growth. That also provides food for small fish. Right? King cobras, when they grow, when they are born, or fish, a lot of snakes, they don't start eating mammals straight away. They also eat insects when they are small. Right? Similarly, a lot of these crabs, what are the crabs eating? They're not catching fish, they're eating detritus. So they're eating decaying plant and animal matter. You've seen crabs can actually come around a dead fish and start feeding on it. If they eat on decaying leaf matter also.
Leaves.
So therefore this is important. Pollution control and removal of sediments. So that's also important because the water is bringing in a lot of sediments. They get stuck in the mangroves and the water that meets the sea is far more cleaner. Okay? Why is it important? Because corals cannot grow in turbid water. So if there is huge amount of turbidity, and when you actually fly and look down from the flight from a plane, you can see turbidity. So if you're going out of Bombay, you will see suddenly the sea is brown and it becomes blue in no time. But there is a gradient. So from dark brown to light brown to deep brown happens. Now all that has a huge, why should that be important? Because corals don't grow in deep sea. They grow in shallow sea because the sunlight has to be there. And shallow sea is generally closer to the land. So if that itself is turbid, then even if it is clear inside, you won't have corals. And corals are like the most important building blocks in the marine ecosystem. And so turbidity near the land is detrimental to growth of corals, which has an impact on other animals and the entire food chain. And remember, India is not so heavily dependent on seafood, but there are countries who are totally dependent on sea. So if sea stops giving them food, those countries will have to be vacated. Right? So that's very important. Livelihood provision, all of us know that fisher folk go to catch fish, anybody who is dependent on fish is benefiting from mangroves. Remember that? Also livelihoods in from prawn cultivation, all those things happen. Another thing is wood. So there are a lot of communities that are dependent on wood for fuel wood. So if you go to Sundarbans, poorest of the poor are collecting dead mangroves for cooking. Protection from natural disaster, cyclone, tsunami. Mangroves will not stop tsunamis. They cannot stop cyclone. But because there is huge mangrove stretch, then the first onslaught of the cyclone or a tsunami is on them. But if that mangrove is not there, there will be buildings there. They will be hit by tsunamis much more severely. That's all. Physically, mangroves will not allow you to be close to the sea. So you will be a few kilometers inside. So the impact of tsunami on you will be much lower. That's all. Refuge for wildlife, I don't need to emphasize, we all know biodiversity conservation is something that I've been talking about. So there are several ecosystem services coming in. So we can't look at forest as just wood. There are so many things. Regulatory, which means temperature is regulated, floods are regulated, provisioning, it is providing a lot of things including oxygen, good quality soil, cultural. Lot of our cultures are interwoven with nature, and it is supporting so much of life. There is germination, there is pollination, all these things. Do you know 30% of all crops that we use as humans are dependent on natural insect or bird or mammal for pollination? So it's not done artificially, it's all natural, 30%. So watermelon, it's also pollinated in a natural way. There are so many foods that you eat. If the natural ecosystems went, along with them will go all those organisms which are pollinators, and nobody will be able to pollinate our crops. So that is also very, very important. So that way there could be up to 50 different ecosystem services that we get from mangroves. So if you ask me what is the cost of 1 acre land of mangrove, it is not the cost of the land, or it is not the cost of the wood, or it is not the cost of whatever we can sell. It is this ecosystem services. And that cost is so high, you can't even measure it. So when there is a very interesting study that IIFM did on valuation of ecosystems, net present values. So when they did this valuation, they came up with some value of, say, Sundarbans Tiger Reserve or Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. That is just 3% of the actual value, because that value is the tangible part of it. The non-tangible, intangible one is not even factored. Because can you value the, say today, if you are working here and you are tortured because of something, you want to continue working, you cannot, unless you go and spend a week in a quiet place and you say, Abhi, I am back. What is the value of that? You cannot measure. The value of well-being, of just going out there, spending a week with your family. If you put money, you cannot, right? So that part is so massive. We must understand this ecosystem service we have to keep in mind. It's not just the wood, because when you are growing up in our idiotic textbooks, you are always told rubber, wood, resin, honey. That is just not even 1% of the value of the forest. Because once you cut a tree, its contribution to oxygen for the next 200 years is taken away. And the wood may be available for whatever cubic meter cost. That is just this present value. What about the oxygen that will come out of that tree for the next 200 years? That we cannot even measure. So, next slide. And such vast landscapes we have in India. And you see how these trees are slowly adding land. Yeah. Next. This is, if you go on a boardwalk in any of, in fact here, maybe 5 minutes away, and this is the kind of site you will see. Or this is regenerating. These are not old mangroves. So these are all growing. In this you will see snakes, snails, mollusks, so many types of mollusks, crabs. Every time the seawater goes down and all these animals come up. Next. All over. These are, what are these? Snails, conch, and they are detritivores. They are also feeding on microscopic plant and animal matter that's there in the soil. Okay? They are also creating burrows in which there are tube worms and lot of other things. So this becomes a substrate for birds to come and feed on. And you see the birds that you see on this kind of mud flats, you look at them from now on to see how different their bills are. So from this small to this long, the apparatus to catch is there. How has that got, how is there so many different lengths of bills? The structure may be the same, but the lengths are different because again those birds are trying to reduce competition. So if I have a hand which is this much, I can go down. If all of us have the same size of hand, we cannot go below this. But maybe there is food here. So slowly your hand becomes longer, and if it is long, if suddenly my son's hand are long, he will become stronger because he'll get food where no one else can reach, and therefore he can add more to the population. So that's how things have got formed. It's so beautiful when you think about it. Next slide. What are these? Mud skippers. One of the most fascinating, it's a masterpiece, and in fact it is also the link between the fact that it tells you how fish started invading land. Right? It has happened in both ways. Animals have got into the sea and then gone back out. So this is a fish that can breathe directly when it's outside. Many fish come up to breathe, but this fish can actually stay up on the surface. It has to be wet, it cannot survive when it's dry. But they have exceedingly started living on land. Think about millions of years ago, fish much larger than this actually came up on land. And then they became amphibious, and they became reptiles, and all those things then started. Next slide. This is how they are. They're coming up on the roots, waiting. It's very fascinating. In fact, you should have a binocular, sit on the boardwalk or on the jetty and keep observing them. The best time has gone away. In November, December is the time when they start fighting. It's the most beautiful sight of how these mud skippers jostle. It's like, two bisons banging against each other with their mouth open. Have you seen that? And this dorsal fin opens up like this. Beautiful it looks. Next slide. Wherever there is mud skipper and other fish and crabs, there are snakes. This is a glossy marsh. So this photograph was taken right here on the older boardwalk. Semi-venomous snakes. Most of the marine snakes are venomous, and we don't have anti-venom for most of them. This snake also has venom, but it is not fatal. Next slide. This is the dog-faced water snake. Very, very interesting observations, and this also is taken in mangrove just beyond Warsaw. There's a jetty there from Warsaw going to the other side, Gorai side. That's where it has been taken. They are very smart. They wait for the seawater to go down, and when it goes down, they occupy an area. They know 4, 5, 6 snakes in one. As the water comes in, along with it, small fish will come and they will catch them. So it's very, very interesting if you spend, and it's much more interesting than terrestrial ecosystems. And the return on investment of time is higher because remember on land you have 24 hours. So animals will say अभी मैं सो जाता हूँ. इधर उनके पास time नहीं है. So that they occupy certain thing. They may not even have 6 hours because high tide. I am talking about peak high tide. So they have just 3-4 hours. So in these 3-4 hours they have to do all their activities. So your return on investment of time is very high. Plus you don't have to walk so much because the habitat gets created as the sea recedes. So it's very good in Bombay where we don't have time, this is where we should go and see all the predator-prey relationships. Next slide. We don't have this beautiful snake in Bombay, but they are found in most mangrove habitats. This is the king cobra, the largest venomous snake on earth. It is found in India all over the Western Ghats, but there is a huge population in Odisha, in Sundarbans. In fact, king cobras, anywhere there are mangroves on the eastern side, beyond, say, Odisha, then you have king cobras there. And some of these can reach about 18 feet. King cobras feed exclusively on snakes. So they eat snakes like noodles. Pura saab andar. Full lamba sa rat snake, 10 feet rat snake goes in. Next slide. What is this?
Crocodile.
Monitor lizard. Water monitor. Again, Sundarbans, Bhitarkanika, all these places you'll see. Next slide, when it's out. Very, very amazing. We have the monitor lizard here. Indian monitor, common monitor, which is brown, yellow. This is black with stripes on it because it is merging with this very dappled. So why is it white and black? Because you see there are bright spots all through the mangrove habitat. And so it is so well camouflaged, and that's why you have spots on it. Like the spotted deer. Spotted deer is not an animal of the grassland, it is an animal of the forest. So it has that dappled light. And you will see spotted deer everywhere, but you don't realize there are many more that you couldn't see. You only know what you see, you don't know what you don't know, or you don't see. Next slide. This is the estuarine crocodile, and the largest crocodiles on earth are saltwater crocodiles. They are also lovingly called salties. There has been a report of a 28-footer from Sundarbans. Now, I have not seen that big. I have seen about 15 footers, but I'm sure deeper inside there are these large crocodiles. But can you imagine 28 feet? I don't know what the length of this room is, probably that. So this is slightly less actually. This may be about 22, 23 feet. कितना है नहीं? वो देख लेना प्लान में. But so imagine. So this is in Sundarbans. You have it all across Odisha as well, wherever. And there were salties in Bombay as well. But because of the size and the amount of scare that it creates in people's psyche, obviously these were eliminated by the British itself. But they are extremely important controllers of disease. All the decaying animals are eaten by them. They are not active hunters. They will wait, an animal is dying, they will catch. They don't always, this National Geographic and Discovery, they keep showing all these hunting. That is not how a typical crocodile is. It doesn't want to work hard. जैसे बच्चे होते हैं ना, मॉम खाना बनाए, हम सुबह से खाना दो, वापस हो जाए. वैसा है. They don't want to work because they get so many dead animals. Sometimes they also get fish that get trapped. When the seawater goes back, inside there are pools on which there are fish. So they just go walk around. खा लिया. They have no ego issue. Freely मिलो, खाओ. Ego issue अपने पास ही होता है. This ego is a very human thing. Next slide. Of course, I cannot keep talking about birds because there are so many species of birds that depend on these intertidal zones. This is the black-bellied tern, again photographed about 100 meters from here, 100, 200 meters away. Standing on the edge of that boardwalk. Next slide. Then you have the little tern. The male is bribing the female so that she can allow him to mate. So corruption, we learn from animals. Okay. Next slide. Wimbrel. You saw the bill size. This is curving bill, goes down, and this bill is extremely sensitive. So it's not like some wooden part. It may feel like that, but it has very high nerve ends there. So it goes in and it can make out, and the nostril is at the tip, right? So it can actually make out where that tube worm or insect, or not insect, some invertebrate is, and it pulls out. Now this Wimbrel has a small bill compared to the next one, Curlew. So different size bills to go deeper. So a Wimbrel can feed next to a avocet, Curlew, a stork, an egret. All of them can sit next to each other and feed on different things. That's the beauty of it. Next slide. One of my favorite birds. This is found all across the sea also. It's not just restricted to the mangroves. In fact, the Brahmini kite is far more common in the mangroves. But the white-bellied seagull is the tiger of the sea. And really amazing to see these birds. And you go to Kihim and those areas, you still see them. I'm sure you see them along these stretches, but not so often. If you went to Elephanta, you definitely will see, because there are mangroves there. So, next slide. And this is a western reef heron. And you can see it has seen a fish. It's like the tern can get into the water. So it will dive into the water and catch a fish. But this guy doesn't go inside the water. If it goes inside the water, it cannot fly on it because it gets wet. And so it will see from far, it will judge the height. Have you ever seen the refraction? There is a parallax problem. So when you think that something is here, you try to catch it, it's not even there. But these birds know how to correct for it. And so they come flying and the fish is moving. Remember, it's not planted there. Like the National Geographic will have a thing that the eagle will come and carry it. The fish is moving. And it's also moving in 360 degrees, right? It is not in one plane. It is going down, back, any direction. Still they are able to catch. Wings are here and take it off. So the fish you can see in his mouth. Western reef heron, beautiful again. Keep watching them, sitting at one place. You can spend your entire day with your family and enjoy these things. Next slide. Adjutant stork. This is not a typical mangrove species, yet it is found in the associated regions. And because this is also a cousin brother of the vulture. Because it feeds on dead and decaying things. It also kills snakes and all that, but if it gets a dead animal, it will take, it's a lesser adjutant stork. Next slide. This is a stock-billed kingfisher, but in these mangroves you will have several species. The white-throated kingfisher, the small-blue kingfisher, the collared kingfisher, that is the common kingfisher, the collared kingfisher, then the black-capped kingfisher, right? Pied kingfisher. If you are in Sundarbans, then you will have brown-winged kingfisher also, ruddy kingfisher. So kingfishers, you find of great variety in the mangroves again, because there are so many different types of food available for them. Next slide. Most delicate bill of any bird. If you have a avocet in your hand, you will fall in love with nature once again. You've seen the bulbul tarang, they keep playing like that. So the bill is actually like that. And it goes upwards. Wimbrel and Curlew went down, whereas this is going up. What does it do? So therefore, if you think, the Wimbrel will go down in the soil and pick, whereas this bird is like this, so it will go like this. It won't penetrate the soil, it will take it just on the surface of the mud. Avocets, very pretty. Again, this photo, if you see, has also been taken here, about in this sanctuary here. Next.
Flamingos.
Not much have to be spoken about them. Who is this? Tetra flamingo, or is it an adult or a juvenile? And this? That is why I showed this photo. People confuse the two, but there is no confusion. If you see the bill, see the reddish bill, and the bill is very different. Even in an adult, also you will have this very stark contrast. Whereas here, it is almost even the eye color. Okay, this is far more reddish than this one. Next slide. These are swimming. See this. Now this is an adult greater flamingo. Black tip, pink. Go back. Black tip, white. Juvenile. When it becomes an adult, black tip, pink, but these are all reddish, all throughout. That is a very, very big difference. Don't go by size, sometimes it's difficult to know. And they are all swimming. And so when they are swimming, they look all of the same size. It's amazing how layered this. All three. What species are these? Lesser. Okay? Color difference is there, but the bill you have to see. Next. Again. What is this? Greater. Correct. There is no lesser in this picture. Next. All these pictures have been taken here. You come with a 200 out of macaques, they also keep looking very, very industrious. They keep searching for things on the floor. And they are good. When they come down, they become food for tigers. So, macaques are good. Snack. Next slide. This is not a macaque. This is a unique monkey found in the mangrove, specialist of mangroves. It is a proboscis monkey. Next slide. This is a young female proboscis monkey. Again, it is a leafivore. It feeds on leaves and it lives on the mangrove swamps of Borneo. Okay. Next slide. And this is the male. See how powerful these guys are. And this proboscis is used to make sound. From the nose, it can make this and it gets inflated like this. So when they are calling, fighting between males, they seldom fight. They just do this. जैसे अपने रास्ते पर ना मेरी गाड़ी को टच हो गया, हाथ में लगा ना मारूंगा, कोई हाथ लगाता ही नहीं. So वैसा है. Just because he is muscular doesn't mean it fights. Same thing is with gorillas. You've seen gorillas so big, with silver backs, with solid chest muscles and all. They hardly fight. कुछ नहीं, धक्का मार देते हैं, मार देते हैं. Empty vessels make more noise. वैसा है. But when I observed them, and obviously I was fascinated, and I keep going to Borneo. We work with the organization there to look at livelihoods, because there is palm oil issue there, and India knows how to fight these guys. Unfortunately, the government is also in control of those families which are making money out of it. It's very difficult to stop something like that. So we are advising some of the NGOs there. So when I saw them for the first time, and they were up on big trees, the moment a boat goes past them, they just jump from there without looking down. They are pretty much sure that something it will find on the way. You cannot imagine. I've never seen langurs doing that. Langurs jump, but they are cautious. These guys are like, क्या होगा? Because I think they know that even if they don't catch a branch, it is so slushy that they will not have a fracture on their head. But it's quite fascinating, funny. They're looking at you and jumping. Oh, Baba, niche dekh. And the beauty is, I think, what also saves them is that the branches are very of the mangroves. If anybody in forest department people will know, they are like rubber. It doesn't crack. So how your woody plants crack, these don't, because they are surviving in the sea. Na? So the sea water keeps coming and going. So if you are very brittle or very rigid, you will fall. Why does grass survive flood? Big trees fall. Because big trees will try to stop water. Then water will kill them. The grass will fold. So mangrove is like that. So therefore when they jump, the branches, obviously they will land somewhere, but the branch will go like a spring and come back. That's also one of the reasons why they do. That's again evolution, how but it's very amazing, fascinating thing. It looks very funny, no? It looks like an old person from Israel. Next slide. Palm. There is Nepa palm across India. Again, this is a mangrove stretch in East Kalimantan. But what is fascinating is this. These are giant food bats. They are very, very important for mangroves. In Bombay also there are a lot of bats, and they may live in on Five Gardens or in the zoo. But eventually, in the night, they are very, very important. They spend a lot of time in the mangroves. Next slide. Very, very pretty. Next. And see how nature. This is the only flying mammal. Okay, and India, we hardly know of bats, but do you know they constitute 25% of all mammals of India. India has more than 400 species of mammals, 100 plus species are bats, and we don't know. हम लोग सिर्फ टाइगर, हाथी, घोड़ा, आपको टाइगर और लेपर्ड ही देखना है. But these guys are there. It's a fruit-eating bat. It's called the flying fox. This one is about 3.5 to 4 feet big, and on certain mangrove trees we saw about 400-500 of them. It's an orchestra in the day, constantly chirping and dropping seeds of not only mangroves, mangrove seeds not much, but other associated. So they also help spread many more species there. Next slide. Sundarban, spotted deer. They have somehow got habituated to this, but they don't drink this water. There are some freshwater pools, so they feed from there. Again, important food source, but see how impregnable the forest is. Next slide. Pagmag of what? It's a tiger pagmag. 4 toes, you see. And this is what you see in Sundarban. People come and tell you, na, have you heard to say, I saw tiger? ये देखा होगा. Obviously, this pagmag is made by the tiger, ना. तो वो कोई देखने वाला नहीं, अरे मेरा कैमरा निकाल भाग गया. This is the tiger tactic. So we do some amount of human-wildlife interaction, conflict, whatever you call it, management. Next slide. We have strengthened the forest. But this particular male tiger, again, the body is so reddish. And Sundarban tiger is the smallest tiger on earth. And it's about, a male can be about 105 to 110 kgs. Some of the tigers of Vidarbha, and he was the field director of Tadoba. Some of them are 230 to 240 kgs, male. Females are heavier than full-grown male Vidarbha tiger. Why? Because Vidarbha tiger just has to lie like this, with mouth open, and food will go inside. And that to God, deer, sambar. Sundarban tiger doesn't have mammal food. What will they get from a rhesus macaque? And very few deer and some pigs are there. But the effort to catch a pig is so much. So they feed on fish, crabs, a very small prey. And with every foot, every step, they sink in and they pull out. So the heavier I am, the more laborious it will be. So Vidarbha के जय टाइगर को वहाँ छोड़ दिया तो वो पानी में वैसे बैठा. After some time he will get out. Such amazing muscle, you cannot imagine. This is one surprising thing. I worked on tigers for all my life. But first, when I saw tiger in Sundarbans move, it's like complete muscle, not a gram of fat. And the hair is also very coarse. The winter coat in our peninsular India is very long hair, whereas those are like brush, like you have your doormat, that kind of feel. Next photo will tell you how they are. So this is one of the rescued tiger which was caught from a village, and then it was released. This is a full-grown male, and it is released in the water so that it cannot come and attack you. तो पानी में छोड़ते हैं, पानी में से तो it cannot climb up. So they take the boat in and they release. Amazing work the forest department is doing there. And people who work in the forest department, Patil Saab, you know, even in land where we are dealing with tigers, it's a difficulty. There, a tiger can walk through this swamp easily. You can't. You get stuck like this completely. Every step is a pain. And then you know there is a rumor that Sundarban tigers are man-eaters, which is not true. because people go there every day for food, for collection of prawns, they get exposed to tigers, and because tigers don't get large size animal, once they see a mammal, they may say, "अरे यार इसको खाई लेता हूँ." इतना मीट मैंने देखा ही नहीं है वो मच्छी खाने का. It is like some well-built guy there is asked to walk from here to जुहू. आप जाओ, आपके लिए खाना रुका है. वो पूछेगा क्या? कुरमुरा. He will not walk. और इतना चलने के बाद कुरमुरा, right? कोई ऐसा बोलेगा pork, some chicken, something. Then you have incentive. तो उसको बेचारे को incentive नहीं है, and then all these people keep going because poverty. West Bengal is highly dense and extremely poor. So even if people are attacked by tigers, they go. And I have spent some time. I have seen tigers in the wild. I have not seen them drooling when they saw us. So they were behaving like any other tiger, and they didn't like to be sighted. Okay, so it's a myth. People keep talking about Sundarban tiger as a terror. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. There are so many people there. If tigers were man-eaters, there are about 71 adult tigers there as per the camera tracking exercise. Which means we would have lost 71 people every 3 days. Because they have access to human beings. Out of 75, at least 55 tigers have connection, can see a human being in a day. So you can imagine, so you would have lost 55 people in 3 days. Right? So about 550 people in a month. ऐसा हुआ नहीं था. Which is how we must understand that. Next slide. People go in. Again, the most tastiest of honey is in the mangroves. It's a different thing. It's tastiest meaning थोड़ा तुरा असतो. एकदम वो sweet नहीं होता है, but वो उसका एक अलग. Once you get habituated, तो बाकी का honey अच्छा नहीं लगता. So these people go in every day in the swamp. So they are exposed to tigers. It's like in Vidarbha also, all tiger deaths generally, or tiger kills of human beings are of people who go to collect fuel wood, firewood, लकड़ा वकड़ा खरीदने. टाइगर आके विलेज तो है ही, सब टाइगर को मालूम है किधर विलेज है, तो he is not coming in, right? So here the same thing happens. It's a very tough life. Next slide. So I was telling you about livelihoods. So one is that then you can have apiaries, and a lot of these in the West Bengal area, they are encouraging people to have these, and these are important because these bees are not tame. They are only building their hive here. But otherwise they are going and pollinating all plants, not only mangroves but others as well. So this is a very important thing for livelihood collection. Next slide. Fish, of course, this is one of the fishermen on the Bangladesh side of Sundarbans. Look at the size of the fish. Very tough life for a fisherman because they have small boats and they sometimes have to anchor in the water. And if there is a extreme low tide, then the water will be on land. And then they will start thinking about the tiger. Right? So it's not easy. As long as the boat is floating in deep waters, even if there is a tiger next to you, nothing will happen. But once the boat touches the ground or it's in shallow waters, then. But they go in every single day for this. Next slide. Huge amount of catch across Maharashtra. And mangroves, by the way, you also have along the Konkan belt. Some of the better mangroves, and Maharashtra Forest Department have done a lot of plantations because there is huge amount of degradation in some areas, and they've taken up projects now. Some of them are being funded by corporates, and they are trying to get the mangroves back. It's very, very difficult. That's why conservationists keep saying most important is to protect what is there, because anything you destroy to bring it back, very expensive, time consuming, and mortality is very high. But massive amount of protein. Even here, a lot of crab collection happens all across our mangroves. Next slide. It's a big industry. Mud skippers are eaten. Not many people like the meat, but poorest of the poor, something is better than nothing. So I don't know if mud skipper is traded in Bombay. I don't know much, but I've seen some of them in near the railway stations and all. But not many people speak very highly of it. But it's anyways an important food source for several communities across the country. Next slide. And these are the kind of places where they live. Look at the forest there. But beautiful, isn't it? Next slide. Prawn cultivation, see the different types of prawns, fish, all this is a daily catch of fishermen in the mangroves only. One of some of the best prawns. In fact, there is a wonderful documentary on Nat Geo about prawn cultivation in Bangladesh, where people make fish and prawn and they transport it on the railways to Islamabad. No, not Islamabad, Dhaka. It's a very interesting one if you can go online and check how many hundred people, families are dependent on this business. Next slide. And the urge to make more money is doing this. So there are a lot of threats to mangroves. These are all, obviously the wood is taken first and then you are creating prawn cultivation farms. So this is a big threat, not so much to Indian mangroves because here the governance is much better, but on the Bangladesh side, huge tracts of mangroves are being destroyed. They don't realize that a storm may completely take this land away. So these farms may not be here, then they will destroy this. So this land must have taken a few thousand years to form. One cyclone with very high intensity rain can erode this. So the time scale, on the ecological time scale is very important. What takes so long for a tree to grow, a banyan tree can be 1,000 years old. To cut with an electric saw, it will not even take half a day. So that is where the problem is. Everything in nature is slow, everything we do is fast, we destroy it and then we want to bring nature back rapidly. That cannot happen. So we have to work on the precautionary principle where don't destroy. Next slide. And this is again Bangladesh side. You don't see such sites, but you can imagine how much is going. And this will destroy the wetland. Again, methane, remember, wetland destruction means methane. Methane means 22 times stronger problem. Next slide. Threats. Anything to India, every problem, this is the first threat. Two people sitting next to each other, next day there is a baby. Very difficult to address this problem. So we should know this problem. We should ourselves not add to it. Land reclamation, housing. This is connected to this. There is no land in Bombay. You want prime land property, you cannot have Nariman Point again and again. So you will create another Nariman Point somewhere, which will happen in the sea to destroy this. Then pollution, industrial domestic waste discharge. Bombay probably discharges more human sewage waste than any other city. Thanks to beer industry, even more now. So much of discharge, 6 times more than the assimilation capacity. So mangroves has a unique ability to remove damaging chemicals from the water. Okay? They have this because of that filtration that I am talking about. But the amount of waste that we dump is so much more that it exceeds it by 6 times. So the mangroves become ineffective to clean the water. Logging and lopping, 1,000 tons of mangrove wood is cut for fuel wood and other timber demands. Even in the most protected areas. Okay? It may not happen here, but on Kalwa side, Mundra side, or even if you go on to the western side towards Gujarat, lot of it is being cut slowly. Ports and mega development projects, more ports will come where the land is, where they can work on the land. So these become estuaries and creeks become a natural conduits for ports. And so that's where in the name of development all across India, the government are thinking of building big ports, and those ports will destroy some of our most important mangrove areas. Dumping of solid waste and debris, we don't have to explain that. In Bombay we know this is the biggest problem. Alteration in shape, size and course of creeks and rivers. Because say for instance this new airport is coming, it is all mangrove. and there were 2-3 rivers that were actually entering. And see, wherever there is mangrove, you should know there is some freshwater source. So now if the airport is going to come, the river cannot keep adding water in monsoon, otherwise that airport is going to get flooded. And so those rivers have been diverted. For 10 years nothing will happen and we will think, oh, perfect hai. So some people who migrated into Bombay will not even know the history. And then suddenly after say 20 years there is a massive flood and all the planes are like boats. And we'll have millions of dollars wasted. So that is one very, very big threat. The moment you divert fresh water away from mangroves will die. Because they need that fresh water to survive as well. Over-harvesting of marine resources is a big threat because they also play a role in that ecosystem. So crabs, all these things, over-harvesting you do, that will have an impact on the soil. Soil gets eroded much faster. Reduce natural regeneration because there is so much of injury. So if I get injury, I get cut. All I have to do is put a bandage on it. Why? Because I cannot keep rubbing it. But if I keep rubbing it, correct. So that regeneration doesn't happen when you keep injuring it. And lack of awareness. This is why today this discussion was arranged by the Forest Department, because they alone, it is not there. They do it as a job, but they know unless the common man understands, it is impossible for them. It's like the police. How many police you have per police, I think in India there might be 10,000 people. So how can that one police ever control? So it has to be self-governance. So in the same way, the Forest Department doesn't even have that kind of funds as police. Okay? They are very fixed amount. So how are they? They are just not, it's impossible for the best officers to even scratch the surface if the common man is not aligned. And so this awareness, although I have added it at the end, it is extremely important, and for that you don't have to be an expert. If you know more than your neighbor or your friend, you must talk to them about it. You may not be in a position to do, but if your friend is in an important position, for instance, I may not be Anish Andheriya, conservationist. I could be somebody who understands mangrove. Tomorrow, I meet Aditya Thackeray, who is our environment minister. If I convince him that mangrove important hai, khatam. I may not help, but my information, he can help because he has power. So awareness, you cannot ever underestimate the power or overestimate the power of awareness. No matter what you do is less. And for that you don't have to have 30,000 years or 30,000 hours of experience on mangroves. Okay, next slide. You have to ask yourself, what can you do to save mangroves? I have given you a list of things. There is no spoon feeding here. You are Bombayites. You have survived in Bombay. Bombay ka namak khaya hai. It is time to give back. And this is not a school classroom. And this gentleman knows so much more than a kid knows. And so I don't consider him as a child. So you need to tell them, come here. Go right here. So what can we do to save mangroves?
We can try to spread awareness among people.
Then, from whatever I spoke, you are going to be the next forest minister of Maharashtra. क्या करेगा? उनको बोल.
We can stop them who are cutting these mangroves to build buildings.
And if you see cutting, so you can stop कैसे? कोई ऐसा मुच्छड़ रावण ऐसा काट रहा है, can you go and stop it? बोले शाने चल निकल. So how can you stop it?
Awareness.
Awareness कैसे? वो मुच्छड़ को बोलेगा तो सुनेगा ही नहीं. You have to inform the forest department. Something is going. You don't have to care whether it's sanctuary or non-sanctuary. Sanctuary, by default, enjoys the highest amount of protection. But any tree standing is as important as the tree in the sanctuary. So you have to inform.
1926 is the 1926 is the
बोलो सबको.
1926.
किसके लिए?
Forest department.
To inform about cut anything that is
Yeah.
any illegal activity. Because you cannot see, you go and fight with a butchered uncle, it may be injurious, but to you. But you don't have to fight. You have to tell these people, and I told you they have huge power, more powerful than police. You understand that? पुलिस को वारंट दिखा, चल वारंट दिखा तभी अंदर आएगा. इधर ऐसा नहीं, they just go अंदर. समझा? So that's most important. Awareness building, of course. Go and watch wildlife. Only when you understand this intricately woven web will you understand, because trees don't talk to us. पेड़ अपने से बात करता है कि हमको बचाओ, ऐसा कोई बोलता नहीं है ना. तो कैसे? trees तो बोलेगा ही नहीं, तो वो तो बेचारे काट देंगे. So how do you protect it? By making people fall in love with the. Go alone. Don't go in couples around the tree. You will not focus on them. Good. What is your name?
Arham.
A-R-H-A-M.
RHAM.
नाम याद रखना. 20 साल बाद. Second youngest environment minister. Okay. Next slide. That is my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. ज़्यादा नहीं जाता हूँ मैं. And my email address. These are the websites where you can go and get some information generally.